Marhaba, ya doctor.
Let me begin by first offering warm greetings to all who are watching, to both those who have doctorates and to those who do not have doctorates. So, last month I put out a short video on a curious article which had been shared by our beloved friend over at We Woke Now. And as I showed in that video, what was being presented as a real newspaper article was actually produced by a newspaper clipping generator site, which allows anyone to construct, novelty articles that read however they please. Well, afterwards, last weekend specifically, our friend, the good doctor, responded with a video of his own, and I'd like to discuss that video section on the controversial article. So I'm going to play about 3 minutes from that section. And as you listen to this, note how he insinuates that I was likely part of a conspiracy to trick him into posting that article. And note how he also curiously brings up the Katz controversy almost in the same breath. All right, here we go. Listen to this.
On February 27th, I posted a newspaper clip on my YouTube channel that was forwarded to me. Little did I know that this clip was a forgery. The last thing I would think is that someone would stoop to such a level of deception, knowing it would circulate throughout our community. Unfortunately, this forged article did circulate to others as well, and I believe that's the true intentions of the creators of this deceptive clip. See, within an hour of me posting it on my YouTube channel, I received a tag to a video Abu did to mock me titled Hebrew Israelite, We Woke Now, Fooled by Mem Generator, by way of Mike Pereira, aka Faithful to a God. How did he instantly know to go to a site that I am confident very, very, very few has ever heard of? Is it a coincidence that just so happened that the Roman Catholic Al-MaseeHee Manhattan, aka Abu, quickly recognizes the origins of this image? Is it a coincidence that he swoops in and saves the day? Have you noticed it's always someone bringing something to his attention? It was a little birdie that supposedly forwarded the video I did about the Pews that was nested among over 180 other videos. It was a little birdie in his ear that supposedly told him about Benita Israel's transliteration of one of the Pews. It was a little birdie in his ear that gave him the idea that Pastor William Brown allegedly, supposedly created Professor Richard Katz. It was a little birdie in his ear who told him about the newspaper clipping generator. Again, is this a coincidence? Is it strictly a coincidence? He made it a point in a discussion with Orthodox Moore to say he didn't know the manufactured so-called controversy about Professor Katz would take the discussion away from the Pews. Yeah, right. I'm going to show you why he and his entire group manufactured this so-called controversy. He also said the same thing on Brother Berean's channel. Yet, little do you know that he continuously tags me to his videos and as well as the videos of John Mark Reiser, aka VocabMalone. I want to make this clear. There is a difference between doing something in error versus purposely being deceptive. Every one of us have posted or made a reference to a poor source not knowingly.
So our friend, the good doctor, raised this question. How was I able to find that newspaper clipping generator site within an hour of Dr. Kelly posting that false article? Well, the honest answer is Facebook. Seriously, someone on Facebook told me about the site. It's as simple as that. More specifically, the person who told me about that site was the one and only BK Apologist. Now, those who are unfamiliar with his thorough apologetics work might refer to him as, quote, a little birdie, end quote. But those of us who are familiar with the man and his work know him as the BK Apologist. And it was him, it was the BK Apologist who told me about it on Facebook. In fact, he introduced me to the site via a comment in a public thread on Facebook, which anyone can peruse. And I'm going to show that thread and I'm going to link to it. And by the way, it's worth noting that in an episode of Berean TV, which aired on March 3rd, Brother Berean posted the link as well. He posted the link to that very Facebook thread. He posted it in the comment section of his video. And again, like I said, I'm going to share that Facebook thread in a moment. But since we're on the subject of Berean, let's first take a brief yet fun look at, the portion of the show that focused on the controversy over the article. Here, listen to this and enjoy.
I clicks on this thing and Pastor Kelly done posted, "Oh, we the people," and all of this stuff. And then it's a boo that's explaining and showing some stuff in a link that we woke now done posted, and the whole link is pseudo. I'm gonna put that link in there too, and the whole link is pseudo. And I'm like, what's going on? After Abu blew shots at Pastor Kelly and them like he did before with the lies and the nonsense. That's how come I said all of this is part of the sideshow. All of this is part of the circus. Pastor Kelly turns around and take it down, but he had to get shots blown at him. That's how come we need intelligent believers to get them that work. We're not playing with y'all. Y'all can't just post what y'all want to post. Yo, Sister E, y'all wanted the light. Y'all wanted the shine. Y'all got the shine now. He posted some pseudo nonsense. Pseudo crazy nonsense. And how you a doctor with a dissertation? How you a scholar and you can't peep something and know that this is not right and exact? First of all, Abu blew it up. Shout out to Abu. He blew up Kelly on two occasions.
Yeah.
So Kelly, you can't put nothing out. We looking for you. You can't put nothing out to pseudo. We on top of you. They think they can get out here and make videos and not be challenged because they used to Christians just sitting back. They got the wrong type of believer in this hour. God raising up a different type of believer in this hour, and y'all gonna be challenged. That's all. Yeah, they question Jesus. Who are you, Dante? Who are you, Pastor Kelly?
All right. I hope everyone enjoyed that. But getting back to what I was saying, Berean posted the link to this Facebook thread I've been referring to. He posted it in his comment section of his video, and you can see that here. And like I said, I'll have the link in the video description. But let's take a look at the thread now. So here's the relevant thread. At a time when Dr. Kelly's YouTube community post sharing that article was barely 20 minutes old, I put up a post on Facebook asking if anyone else found that article curious. And the reason why I did that is because the article immediately looked like an obvious fake to me. Like the D in daily, in the very name of the newspaper, the D in daily being lowercase was an immediate red flag. And so too the spacing and some of the other features also seemed unlikely for a legitimate newspaper. And then after I had posted that Facebook thread, Alfredo Valentin, the one and only BK Apologist, commented on my thread, and he linked to the newspaper clipping generator site. And he also shared a quick article he had generated that, just for the occasion. And you can see me thanking him for the link. Now, this might raise another question, and that's this. How did the BK Apologist know about the site? Well, as he noted in the comments of that same thread, he's been debunking that meme for years, so he's been familiar with the site that produced the article for quite some time. And I subsequently went on to note that, I gave credit to him in a pinned comment of my video, on the video on it that's on my account. And, anyone can go see that as that pinned comment is still there. And days later, I posted an addendum in the thread noting what our good friend had stated in his recent video. So subsequent to that, BK Apologist then encouraged me to show the very thread in which he had told me, which is precisely what I just did now. And, to show you how far back that fake article goes, here's an old post in which BK Apologist is alluding to it. Now, note that the date is September 15th of 2019. So this is like a year and a half ago. And in the comment section, he posted a screenshot of an Instagram post in which someone else had posted precisely that article. And here's another example of, how long that article had been circulating, Oh, and by the way, aside from that, what he shared, I did a bit of a Google search and I found this post from April of 2019. So we're talking, nearly 2 years ago. We see that people were sharing this fake article. Now, as far as questions goes, this raises yet another question. And that question is, should we stop here? In other words, our friend, the good doctor, asked how I was able to learn of that newspaper clipping generator site so fast, and I gave the simple and honest answer because someone who's quite familiar with it told me about it on Facebook. So, part of me thinks that this is a good time to end this video, However, I'm going to be honest, another part of me wants to recall that in that long clip I played, the good doctor also made a curious reference to the Katz controversy. And because he did that, I'd like to segue into that topic. So let's discuss that for the rest of this video. Honestly, there's an obvious parallel between posting a video with fake emails from a non-existent scholar on the one hand and posting a fake article on the other hand. And that parallel is this, well, let's put it this way. What are we to make of the Katz emails making their debut on a video at We Woke Now? The best case scenario is one in which our right honorable friend, the good doctor, was himself initially deceived before airing the Katz emails. In other words, maybe he wasn't in on it. Maybe he himself was tricked, and he sincerely believed they were real. But that would imply a rather glaring lack of intellectual curiosity on our friend's part. Was he not interested in getting more information on the mysterious professor? In other words, in the best case scenario, he didn't take a close enough look at the emails or the alleged scholar that they were attributed to, and he likewise didn't take a close enough look at an article which immediately struck others as likely fake. That's the sort of pattern which begins to raise questions about discernment. And it's not a mere one-off mistake if it happened twice. Let's, with all due respect. So now, as I said, that's the best case scenario. But let's ask this question. What might the worst case scenario be? At this point, I'd like to submit some new clues into evidence, which might allow others to reassess their own speculations regarding the proximity of our beloved friend to those controversial Katz emails. To begin, I'd like to return to We Woke Now's video from December 7th, on which the Katz emails were first unveiled. And let's recall this curious portion from an email composed on December 4th. And remember that date. This is an email from December 4th, as that date is going to have some mild relevance later on. Okay, now take a look at this.
Look what it says here. My conclusion regarding the Pews, the words B'nai Yisrael, or son of Yisrael, or simply Yisrael, should be noted.
So, as has been noted before, what stands out in that portion is the alleged Hebrew scholar thinking that the phrase B'nai Yisrael means son of Israel, son, singular. So you see, the author of the email thought B'nai was singular, when really it's plural. It's the word banim in the construct state. You see, when you have a plural noun ending in yod mem, that is to say, plural nouns which are typically masculine, though not always masculine. So again, when you have a typically but not always masculine plural noun ending in yod mem, and it's in the construct state, the final mem is dropped. That's why banim, the word for sons, is plural, yet it becomes b'nai in the construct state because the mem is dropped. A simple and common way to think of a noun in the construct state is to think of that noun as being possessed by something else. Hence why this dropping of the final mem happens with both possessive suffixes and also with instances where the relevant noun is possessed by the noun that follows, like with the phrase sons of Israel, where the sons are possessed in a sense by Israel. They belong to Israel. And you can find this in any book on Hebrew grammar. So here I'll show one quick example. Turning to page 76 of this book, a number of examples are given in a discussion about nouns in the construct state. And I'll highlight the plurals ending in yod mem amongst these examples. Note on the right the top example, banim, sons, which in the construct state becomes b'nai. And also note the bottom example on the right, as that is going to come up later in this discussion. That's nashim, meaning women, and it becomes neshe in the construct state. And on the following page, you find some more examples, both singular and plural. And, if you're interested, feel free to pause the video here so you can, peruse the chart at your leisure. Now, as for me, I want to move on to exploring whether the good doctor, like Professor Katz, if the good doctor, Dr. Kelly, was also unfamiliar with this feature of Hebrew grammar. So this is a public Facebook post which Dr. Kelly put up on March 4th, 2020. And I want to focus on the bottom paragraph where he attempts to give the Lashon Kodash terms for the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. As we zoom in, notice that he refers to the Son of God as Banya Elohim. Not Ban, but Banya. And I would propose that by Banya, he meant Beit Nun Yod, precisely the construction that Katz was confused about, or the author of the emails attributed to Katz was confused about. However, at this point, one might object, one might say, wait, his transliteration has a hyphen before the Yah, and there's also an H at the end of his transliteration. So maybe he meant that as Yod He, not simply, a Yod by itself. In other words, one might object that he could have meant son of Yah, using a truncation of the tetragrammaton in reference to God. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at yet another public Facebook post by the good doctor, this one from June of 2020. And here he's trying to transliterate the Hebrew word, or the word for Hebrew, the Hebrew word for Hebrew, according again to, his Lashon Kodash pronunciation. And while it's unambiguous this time that he's referring to a word that ends with Yod, he transliterates the Yod with the same hyphen. Hyphen Yah, hyphen Y-A-H, Ibar Yah, hyphen Y-A-H. In other words, if the hyphen Yah in his transliteration of Ibri, which he renders Ibar Yah, represents just a Yod, if the Yah represents just a Yod, then likewise, in the same construction, hyphen Yah in his transliteration of the word for son would presumably represent just a Yod as well. In short, when he wrote Ban Yah, much like Richard Katz, he was treating Beit Nun Yod as referring to son in the singular. But let's drive this point home some more. So I'd like to take a look now at a video on the Z39 language account. And by the way, Z39 stands for Zephaniah 3:9. So on the Z39 language account, there's a video titled Polygamy, Wife of Thy Youth. And it's from August of 2019. Now, in this video, we get to see the good doctor attempting to discuss a word which we just saw in that book we looked at, that book on Hebrew grammar. So when you look at this here, pay close attention to what he has on the screen. And after the clip, I'll try to elucidate it. We'll discuss it a little bit. Okay, here, listen to this.
So let's deal with this Hebrew definition of wife, because this is important as well. Irregular plural, and you see Nashim, a woman, but this is the key, a woman, female, wife, woman. So we see it what? Singular, right? But oftentimes when we see it plural, we see what? Nashim or Nash Yam. And I'm going to show you to give you clarity on why this is important. Because when we're taking language from one primary language and we're transliterating it, a lot of things get lost. And let's go to the Ernest Klein Comprehensive Etymological, Dictionary of the Hebrew Language definition of wife. This is what it means, just to give you more clarity. All right. It says, when you see Nasha, right? Woman, feminine. But notice it's what? Singular. The plural, feminine plural, where you see here women, you see Nashayam. All right. But you see what? Nashai, singular, Nashayam, plural. This is important. I want to lay down the foundation of this because this is important when we're reading the text and understanding what words are used in Hebrew in the text to give proper clarity. All right. And so here you see what? Nasha. You, ath or atha, nasha. All right. But I'm going to deal with this right here. Right. You see here. Bayath, Adonai. And this is dealing with, actually, this is the scripture for King David. And I'm going to get, I should have left it where it was, but this is the scripture for King David that many use to say, hey, David was given multiple wives from Saul's household, from his house. But we see the singular word, nashai. Remember, nashayam is what? Plural. So that means that who was the wife that the Most High gave to David from King Saul's household? Do y'all remember who she is? Michal. David had 8 wives. Well, you know, he had all kinds of concubines and all of those things. But the 8 wives, there was only one that was out of what? The house of Saul. Well, we see that what? This word is what? Singular, not plural. But it transliterates to saying what? He gave you what? Wives. Versus he gave you what? A wife. Or the wife of thy youth. Who David did deal with treacherously. When you really understand the fullness. And we're going to cover that real quick. All right? So I want to highlight that. So wives, nashai, in this text is used what? Singular.
Okay, now let's clarify what he had on the screen. First, let's look at that entry he showed from Ernest Cline's Comprehensive Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language. He focused on the entry for the adjective, but the biblical verse he looked at is employing a noun. So he should have looked more closely at the entry for the noun. So in the entry for the noun, those letters you see, F dot, N dot, PL dot, those abbreviations stand for feminine noun, plural. The corresponding singular noun is not simply the same string of characters minus the mem, as Dr. Kelly assumed. Rather, the entry tells you what the singular actually is. It's right there. It's Isha. Now, let's get to the biblical verse he showed. You know, he put it up in the Phoenician or Paleo-Hebrew script. But whatever the case, that's 2 Samuel 12:8. The relevant phrase is Neshe Adonecha. Now, the word Neshe in that verse is the word Nashim in the construct state. In short, much like Richard Katz, Dr. Kelly was unfamiliar with the rule that we looked at, where plurals that end in Yod Mem drop their Mem when they are possessed by a noun that follows, when they're possessed by something else. Dr. Kelly looked at a plural noun and wrongly assumed that because there was no mem at the end of it, he assumed it must be singular. And, you know, at this point, his own reasoning seems a lot closer to the reasoning of that Katz email, of that email that was attributed to Richard Katz. However, let's look at one final example, and let's look at one which not only employs the same term, but will also fall within the same time period. So this is a public Facebook video from Saturday, November 28th, 2020. And note that date. Remember that the relevant Katz email that we looked at was from the following December 4th. So there were about 6 days from this teaching, from this Facebook video, to the composing of the relevant email attributed to a scholar named Richard Katz. In this clip, you'll see Dr. Kelly write the Hebrew word for father in the Phoenician or Paleo-Hebrew script. And then he'll mention the Hebrew word for mother. And then you'll see him attempt to write the Hebrew word for son in that same script. And I want you to pay close attention to what precisely he writes. And also listen to how he pronounces it. Let's look at the clip and then we'll discuss it.
So these two letters together form the word, define the word what? So just off the first 2 letters, right, we learn a key word, and that is what? Abba, which means what? Father. So the very first word we have here is Abba. And then next we see Ama. And together, this is where we see they can either produce, depending on if they have boys and girls, right? Let's see here. So I'm just going to put it right here for son. And then we'll put all right? So that is pronounced Ban Ya, right? And that means what? Son. So this is what? Son.
Okay, so you heard him pronounce the word for son as banya. And notice what he wrote, Beit Nun Yod. He thought that the singular word for son has a yod at the end of it, just like Katz thought. And no, neither of them had the first person singular possessive suffix in mind. So let's try to sum this up. Here's how I would sum it up. Late last autumn, Richard Katz didn't understand the construct state in Hebrew, and thus he wrongly thought B'nai meant son in the singular. So too, late last autumn, Dr. Kelly didn't understand the construct state in Hebrew, and thus he too wrongly thought B'nai meant son in the singular. At this point, Professor Katz's reasoning and familiarity with Hebrew bears some clear similarities to the reasoning and familiarity with Hebrew of our beloved friend, the erudite Dr. Kelly. And, I leave it to you to draw your own conclusions as to where, what we should conclude from here. For my part, I'll say up front that this does not definitively prove that Dr. Kelly composed those emails. However, I'd be curious if Brown learned some Hebrew from Dr. Kelly, because it seems like the email was written by somebody with a similar mindset. It could be someone who learned from Dr. Kelly, like, maybe William Brown. One final thought. Now, I realize that some who watch this video might feel that a bunch of different pieces were brought together in this video. Pieces from here, pieces from there. And with that in mind, it's worth noting that some of us are interested in seeing what comes up if we take the time to carefully examine the language claims.
I'm going to spend the rest of the year on this language. Listen, y'all, right now, it look bad. It look like y'all been lying out here. That's what it looks like. Look like y'all ain't been nothing but liars. So how much have you lied about some now? I got to go personally digging on everything. Somebody's a filthy liar. Somebody, I don't trust you with the language. And they lying to the people. Israel can ride with them lies. I ain't riding with no lies. And this is me. And I'm talking about every milk and cranny. Y'all want to see I'm thorough with it. Every milk and cranny. I think the language is make-believe. I think y'all lying. I think y'all misusing sources. I'm not playing. I spend the rest of the year. I built for a long time on one subject. I talk about the Christmas tree all year. I think I'm going to spend a year on that language. I'm going to spend a year on Pastor Kelly, Pastor Major, and that information.
With that, I'll close here simply by saying that there is much more to discuss, and I hope we can discuss it. But until then, as always, I look forward to the comments of others. God bless.
You just call yourself a doctor? Have you been working on a PhD the past 3 to 5 years that we didn't know about it? You never told anyone till now? Now all of a sudden in the midst of this crisis, you have a doctorate? It couldn't have been in Semitic languages because you obviously don't know what you're talking about when it comes to Semitic languages. And it wasn't in newspaper research and journalism. Y'all know what I'm saying with that.